afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for choosing to spend your evening with us this afternoon as we share on the careers and culture. We have Miss Megan Sylvester, as you were told earlier on, from TUCO. And actually, it's the first time we are having, in all the career fairs that I have been in St. Patrick, it's the first time we are having TUCO as part of our event. So I'm so very interested to hear about the careers that Miss Sylvester will share. So Miss Sylvester, thank you so much, and you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome to everyone who is in this session. As I would have indicated when we were doing the test, I'm not going to put on my camera because I'm actually just going to be sharing my screen, and then I will invite questions thereafter. I trust that I have sharing privileges.
Yes.
Yes, I do. Okay. So today I am going to be talking about, as we can see here, sorry about that, music industry careers. And it becomes important that we understand why TUCO is so pleased to be doing this particular session. Of course, we are the Trinbago Unified Calypsonians organization, and we represent the body of Calypsonians and soca performers in Trinidad and Tobago. So TUCO actually operates sort of like a lobby group or like a union for Calypsonians and soca performers. And so today we're going to be looking at some of the careers in terms of what is required, what is the span, breadth, and width. So I'm just going to be sharing with you this particular bio of mine. I have written a lot on calypso music as well as soca music and looking at all of our carnivals across the diasporas. So let's just start off to understand why it is I would even want to start talking about calypso music, especially coming from TUCO. Calypso music is created and performed as an integral part of the annual carnival festivities. So we need to understand why calypso is so important to Trinidad and Tobago. We have our annual carnival here. This perspective is linked to the work of several theorists, as listed there, and in particular, calypso music is linked to carnival, memory, and identity. So when we think about calypso music, when we think about soca music, we think about a music that accompanies a festival every single year. But every year, there's a lot of music that is produced from this particular festival. And from that, when we hear a song from yesteryear, when we hear a song from a past carnival, what it does is that it speaks to the moment and time in which we heard the song, and it really says something about who we are and how we felt about that particular type of music. And so this is really what we're thinking about when we say we're talking calypso, we're talking soca music, we're talking music industry careers. So this presentation will be focusing on careers in the music industry, and it will be subdivided. It'll be subdivided into two categories: live performances and studio recordings. So that for all of the students who are interested to know, when you get into music, when you get into performance, what sort of careers could you possibly get in, even if you are not a singer, even if you're not a musician? And this is what we're going to be talking about today. So we talk about a live performance, and by that we mean any play, show, skit, dance, or other exhibition performed or presented to or before an audience, or one of more, with or without consideration. So it becomes important to understand that even though I'm representing TUCO today, talking calypso, I am really speaking about a wider spectrum in terms of live performance of a play, show, skit, dance, and other exhibitions like activities. Now, this is important because students need to know that there's a wealth of opportunity available to them. So when we talk about music careers, we don't only mean playing an instrument or singing. Other topic I'll be dealing with is studio recording, which means any recording made in a studio as opposed to a live recording. So this is why we have either one or the other, which is usually made in a concert venue or theater with an audience attending the performance. So let's look specifically at some of these careers. A list. Musician, as I mentioned before, your voice is an instrument. So if you are a singer, you can also be a musician. But usually when we speak about musicians, we're talking about persons who play an instrument. All right. So then you can also be a sound engineer. You can be a singer. You can be a background vocalist. Some persons have dedicated their lives to just being background vocalists for many upfront artist. And so this becomes important to note. You can be a dancer. Think about Calypso Fiesta. Think about the Marsh Gras. Think about Soca Monarch. And there are dancers who are on stage performing with the musicians and the singers. You can be a stage manager who is actually managing that stage performance. You can go to school and learn to be a stage manager. There's someone who has to assist the stage manager, and that would be the coordinator. Where do we put props? How do we deal with all of the lighting and all of the particulars that are required for the management of the stage? The coordinator, together with the stage manager, does that. The lighting technician, who only focuses on the light, is a critically important part of any stage presentation. How an artist or musicians are lit would then have an impact on how they are seen by the audience. Stage technician, who would work in concert with the coordinator and the stage manager to get things done, to move this, to bring this, assist with props, etc. A booking agent. A booking agent is very important because someone has to be able to book the talent. And that is really what the booking agent does. Scores and looks across far and wide to determine where can I find the best individual or the best musician or the best artist, the best dancer, the best background vocalist for this particular song, for this particular production. That is the role of the booking agent. Then you have DJs providing loops, samples, and stems. Now, this is important. In between live performances, there tends to be a break where you have DJ music playing. And so this is also part of the career concept within stage management or within live performances. A DJ is an integral part of that whole scene to provide loops, samples, and stems. And then you have a PR publicist. There must be some sort of social media management or publicizing of the event. And this is what the PR group does, or a specific publicist does, to allow the public to be aware of the particular event. This means going to the traditional media, which would be radio, print, and TV, as well as the social media to advise the public to attend the event. And then you have music, entertainment, journalism. Now, this is very important because there must be somebody to report on the event after it has taken place. Critically important. You must be there to take notes or to do a report on the actual event. You then can work for any one of the daily newspapers, for example, or the radio stations, or it could be an online platform that you're working for. So you have all types of journalism that could come out of that. Traditional print, radio, television journalism, social media journalism. All right. You may be wanting to write a blog on that particular show or event that you attended, and that becomes important to note. Then you have song lyrics, right? So now we're looking at studio recording juxtaposed to live recording. So now we want to understand who would be the persons or the jobs or the careers that would be within this particular space. Songwriters and persons who focus on lyrics. So you have a lyricist, that is important. You have musicians who focus on the melody. So there in that one point, you have two different professions, a lyricist and a musician. You need somebody to write the songs and you need somebody to write the music for the songs, which is the melody. If you just have lyrics by itself without any melody, then one hand can't clap, as they say. Then you have the artists themselves. All right, you're talking about all of the artists you can think about. Cass, Nadia, you're talking about Sparrow, you're talking about Kitchener. So that is what we're talking about. Voice, Patrice, Destra. That is what we're talking about when we speak about the artist. The artist usually has a manager that manages their affairs. So an individual can go to school to learn how to manage an artist. That is a career too. We spoke about sound engineers, but let's look at it a little deeper. Sound engineers have three categories: recording or laying down the track, the mixing engineer, and the mastering engineer. So you can actually go to school, students, to become a music engineer, and you can specialize in sound in terms of the recording aspect, the mixing aspect, or the mastering aspect. And so it becomes important when you start to think about what sort of career would you want to be in music. Again, it is not only in the back or in the front. There's a myriad of careers that you could consider. Then you have the producer. Someone must produce this music so that it has a particular sound and vibe. The arrangement of the music varies. Sometimes you hear, for example, that you hear a song that was written, let's say, in one particular decade, and then in another decade, you hear about it being remade. What that really means is that there is a new arrangement of the song, so that it is important to have arrangers in terms of understanding what this final song is going to be like. All right, very important. An executive producer. An executive producer tends to be the person who bankrolls, for want of a better term, bankrolls the production. Money and finance is a critically important part of the production of a studio project. You must have someone doing that. The publisher, copyright and intellectual property rights. Now, this is very important because you want to make sure that your music, your content, your cultural content is not stolen and used by persons without your permission, where they can make money and the money not redound to you. So a publisher looking after your affairs is critically important. Then it is important to also notice is a distributor. How is your music or your cultural content going to be distributed? You must have that person who is going to take your content further, critically important. And then you must have investors. You must have a team of persons who are willing to invest in your particular project, whether it be music, dance, visual art, whatever it is, because it becomes important to understand that. Specifically, we are talking about studio recording here. And again, investors are critically important to put that finance in to ensure that you get the best product. And so now we are looking at, sorry about that, the conclusion. This presentation focused on two categories of careers in the music industry: live performances and studio recordings. And students, it's important that you understand that you are not being held to a particular type of understanding. So I just want to flash this back again and just to recount it for those who may have come in late. Music industry careers that I focused on today is live performance and studio performance. This is the listing of the different performances that you could be, of the different careers that you could be involved in when you are considering being involved in live performance. Musicians, sound engineers, singers, background vocalists, dancers, stage managers, coordinators, lighting technicians, stage technicians, a booking agent or booking agents, a DJ who specifically provides loops, samples, and stems, a PR team or a publicist, and a journalist. That's if you're looking at the live performance. And then secondly, just to recount, if you're into the studio recording and that's where your heart is and that's what you are interested in, consider that you can be a songwriter focusing on lyrics. But there are two streams. There's the lyricist who writes the lyrics, and then there is the musician that would write the melody for the lyrics. You can also be an artist, you can be a manager, a sound engineer, but you have three options for sound engineering. You can be a recording engineer who lays tracks. You can be a mixing engineer who mixes the tracks, or you can be a mastering engineer that masters the tracks. There's also room for you to be a producer, arranger, executive producer, a publisher, looking specifically at your rights, your intellectual property rights and copywriting of your content, a distributor of your work, and investors. And I hope that this presentation has really helped you better understand this separation between live performances and studio performances in terms of careers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Sylvester. And I really appreciated the breakdown in terms of the difference between the live and the studio, because I would tell you, from being a guidance officer for so many years, and we do this test, this career inventory test called RIASEC. And when students pick, they recognize that they have the intelligence for music and they have the skills and the talent, you would find other students saying, you want to do music? What you could do with music? But I must say, I appreciate the layout. I appreciated how it was presented so that students recognize that within the music industry, you can either focus based on your talents, your giftings, your abilities. You can focus on the live performances or the studio performances. But let me just ask a question, Miss Sylvester. In the light of everything that would have happened over the past 2 years, and we're talking COVID and pandemic, how has this affected the industry and in terms of persons marketing themselves, I should say, in the music industry?
All right, so thank you for that question, Miss. One of the key things that, and I can speak about calypsonian soca performers, chutney soca artists, gospel artists in particular. One of the key things that they've had to do to be, financially solvent during the pandemic is they had to literally go to confined spaces. So, for example, I can share with you in South Trinidad, where you have Kenny Phillips and his team at WAC. FM,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What they did is that they have a studio at that station and they invited persons to come in. Of course, all protocols, regarding COVID were put in place, and persons came in, they did performances, live performances that were then streamed, all right, across a platform. So persons all over the world could have gotten a taste of, what do we say when we talk about steel pan music? We had steel pan music. What do we say when we're talking about calypso music, soca music, chutney soca, gospel artists? So across that spectrum, you had artists from Trinidad and Tobago finding their way all the way down to San Fernando to the WAC station in order to do those performances. And what was happening? How did they make money? It was about Fund Me TNT. And persons were being asked to donate using Cash App, using any means to get the funds to the artists. All right. So it really operated kind of like a calypso tent, but it was also a way for the performers to get an opportunity to perform, but in addition to also allow them to be financially afloat during the pandemic.
Oh, all right. As you're speaking there, I'm thinking of the curriculum that students are exposed to in school. I don't know if you have ever perused it, but from my knowledge, I recognize that the concentration a lot is, of course, the playing of an instrument. But from what you have shared, of course, being part of the music industry, it's more than just playing an instrument. And I'm thinking of particular students who can also marry not only the skill in playing an instrument, but I'm looking at technology with all the various engineering that you identified. This might, I don't know, let me just ask it. For us who are in the education system, how can we go about advocating, I should say, that a curriculum focuses not only on the playing of an instrument, but the exposure that you have just identified? How could one go about advocating for that?
Well, I think, Miss, and thanks a lot for that question, because, at TUCO, we are very concerned about getting into the schools and exposing young people to the, 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 the breadth and the width and the depth of what is possible within music. Because as you said earlier, so many parents, so many of their friends and in their peer groups scoff at them when they discover that they have a musical talent or they want to get into music. And when we're talking about exposure, we're talking about within the curriculum as well as outside of it. Specifically, to answer your question, within the curriculum, what I would suggest is that persons involved in curriculum in terms of looking at the music. So let's say the VAPA teachers, what they need to be aware of, and I've been working with many VAPA teachers across Tobago and Trinidad. This is the visual and performing arts teachers. It becomes important for them to be aware of all of these possible careers. And so you sort of create content within the curriculum, as long as it allows for that, to do little, lessons on what is a sound engineer. Because I mentioned, for example, that there are 3 types of sound engineers. So if you want to record, if you want to master, if you want to mix, you have opportunities there. And so what they should also be told, that is the students, where can I then go to get this? And a teacher can then say to them, well, did you know that at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, there's a course that's dealing with that? And so this is how you begin to get the students involved. Some students are dancers, naturally gifted dancers. Let
Yes.
them know that it doesn't mean that it is just an after school activity or extracurricular activity. You can become a world-renowned dancer representing your country. So this has to be told to them, and they need to see the opportunities that lie outside of the school space. Yeah, and so all of the careers that I've listed, it's about letting students know this is what is available. What do you
Wonderful.
want to do, and where can this take you?
And I'm specifically interested with DJ. Now, as I said, I'm basing it on my experience in school. And of course, teenagers love music. They love music. And from my experience, when, it's either lunchtime or let's say there is a rally where there's a football match about to be played, etc. You see the students come alive with music. And it's unfortunate that, you hear a young man or a young woman saying, I want to be a DJ. Of course, parents are not always too kind when it is children express that desire. So I'm so very curious. If it is, you could probably just expand a little more for those who are on the platform. If you want to be a DJ, how can you take that from one level to the next?
And that's a really, really good question. So you mentioned earlier that young people like music. So the first thing to do is to identify, is this a serious passion or is it just a phase that they're going through? All right, because remember, for any career, you want to make sure that you have settled in your heart that this is what you want to do for a living, because you have to live with this choice that you've made. So for those who are serious, then you can point them in the direction of learning how to spin, learning how to, do, as I mentioned about the loops, learning how to, get themselves into that space where they can get better at their craft. And this is for DJing and anything, all right? Any of the careers that I mentioned. And so that is what becomes important. And then seek out. There are actually schools. There are actually schools that teach this, because even though they may like music, they may not have the skill of how to be a DJ, how to successfully let some tunes run into others. Because sometimes you go to an event and you say, no, this DJ don't know what they're doing. You understand? And so think about that. Just think about that. So think about that at a higher level. Think about that as an individual who was working in the Prime Minister's office and they have a role. So a DJ, for example, can be a member of the technical staff. Yeah? And they're providing a function. Let's say we have investors coming to Trinidad and Tobago and you need somebody to play music. You have a job. Not to play music for young people only, because remember, as you in life you age. So this person has to think about, moving into this career as an adult from a teenager. So you have to share with them the spectrum and the opportunities that lay ahead of them.
Okay, and let me just ask one more question, as it's TUCO. So I'm thinking calypso, I'm thinking soca. And what I have observed, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what I have observed, of course, what should I say? The excitement more for the soca than for the calypso. So share with me, do you find that is indeed, and I'm just generalizing, I have no data